Well, well, well. What's up, everybody? It's been a while. A month, I think. Hello. Hi. Hopefully, I set up everything correctly. We're not gonna have issues. It's a lot of the things I did during the last minute. Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm good, thanks. How's the break? It wasn't a break. I've been working on motion canvas this whole time. I've seen a lot of people leaving like really nice, encouraging comments, like, yeah, you should take a break and stuff like that. But I stopped working on the game and dedicated my whole free time towards motion canvas, essentially. But it's been great, though. Thanks for asking. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some of the things that I've been cooking. Yeah, okay, so I think we may start. I actually have a list of things that I want to talk about, so this time it should be a bit smoother. Starting with the new timeline, which you may have noticed looks a little bit different. Previously it used to look like this. I think this is the first screenshot that I showed you. So it's more of a flat timeline without any indicators of where timestamps are. And now it looks a little more like the one that they have in Blender, essentially. So that was my main inspiration. But the visual change was something that I did just because I had to revisit the timeline. The main feature of it is that now you can actually view a little bit outside of the length of the animation. So if you have like the next event here, you can now drag it freely, which is something that wasn't possible before. Oh, starting soon. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Other thing that we have here, and this has actually been done by one of the patrons, we can inspect the elements that are in the scene. So you can see I can select it. Let's see. I can select different elements and I get the information of different attributes that they have set. It still requires a little more work, because as you can see, for instance, it displays the width and height incorrectly. There's some stuff to be fixed here. But yeah, that's what this tab is meant for, because previously I believe it was just like an empty tab without anything. We have some more rendering settings. I'm trying to remember what's new and what's old. We can now change the resolution here as we edit everything. So now it's a square, for instance. We can change which file extension we want to render to, and an optional quality for stuff like JPG, or however you pronounce that, and also a color space that the canvas uses. Oh yeah, frame rate is a number, so we can input it, make it be whatever you want. I usually go through list of commits to help remember what I changed. Yeah, but like there's a lot of commits and they not always, they don't correspond one-to-one to singular features. What is the quality number? If you're exporting to a format that supports quality, it's gonna use it. So you can say that you only have like half quality. It doesn't change anything here, it's only for exporting. Yeah, and that's it when it comes to like visual changes and the interface changes. So I'm gonna switch to a different project really quick. Oh no, there's one more thing that I want to show you. So now there is an actual support for multiple projects. Here I have two, so I can open this one, and this is a presentation for later. And I can go back and choose another one, and this is a different project. Inside of, give me a second. When it comes to configuration, it looks like this. So when we were configuring our project, we just pass an array of files that contain projects, and it's going to automatically display them as this list. Should change quality to a %. It's more common with JPG exporting tools and such. It's an interesting idea. Another thing is that before we were using Webpack, now we're using Vite for during the hosting of the application. So this is actual Vite configuration here, and we're just passing Motion Canvas as a plugin, and that's it. So from the from package.json perspective, it's just we're just running Vite. There's no, before there was like a custom command line tool specifically for Motion Canvas. Now that's it's just a project. Yeah, so this is the project view. And now from some like, when it comes to some more technical changes, I have an example animation right here, right? It's just a bunch of squares that go from bottom to the top. This is how it looks like in Motion Canvas in the code. So I'm just creating 19 rectangles. Each of them is 100 pixels wide and high. And then I'm doing a simple for loop where I first dispatch a transition from the current position, which is 480, to negative of that over 0.6 seconds in a linear fashion. And then I wait for 0.016 seconds, which is one frame considering 60 frames per second. And this is how it looks like. And so what's important here is that I'm displaying this currently in 30 frames per second. But I can switch to 60 frames per second, and you can see that nothing has changed. We are switching from frame 14 to frame 28 because it's double the frame rate. But the animation looks exactly the same no matter the frame rate. And this was actually tricky to achieve because before, the way it used to work was that this number would be rounded or floored. I'm not sure, but it was rounded in some way to the closest frame. And so when we entered a time value that's smaller than the smallest time interval, which is indicated by the frame rate, this would get rounded and it wouldn't work. So one thing that you could do would be, for instance, just yield, and this would wait for one frame. But this will change the duration of the animation between frame rates, because now in 16 frames per second, as you can see, it ends right here at 54. But if I go to like 30, now it ends in 36, and 36 is not 54 divided by 2. It's a little bit longer. Now it's fixed magically, let's say. It actually keeps track of the current time and uses it to adjust any interpolation that happens. So we can see when we are using like 60 frames per second, if I step one frame, only one square here lifts up. But if I switch to 30 frames per second, you can see that one frame moves this first square up, but also the second one. And that's the reason why this whole thing works. And I had an issue with that in one of my very first animations, which I can show you, I think. Give me a second. So if you take a look at this right here, I actually have this square that travels through all the pixels on this image. And this is a huge pain because of this problem with frame rates. Because I use 30 frames per second to edit animations, but I render them in 60 frames per second, and this would mess up the timing. So now with this new change, it's no longer a problem. So that's this change. And next up we have layouts. So the previous layout system was a bit lackluster. It only worked in one direction. So the parent element could rearrange its children, but not the other way around. So you couldn't have a parent whose size would adjust to its children, for instance. And the way I'm working on it. Oh wait, hold on. I need to start from the beginning. The way scenes work, and scene is just this one file that corresponds to this one clip here on the timeline, is by providing a declaration for a scene from your scene file. And it used to be a thing where you would just export this raw generator function without anything else. Now you actually need to wrap it in something that provides information about the type of this scene, because you can have multiple different scenes now, scene types. So previously I've been using a scene based on Conva, which is a library for like 2D canvas rendering. It was nice, it worked well. I made a few videos with it, but it had some issues that were really difficult to work around. Mainly the fact that the source code was not mine, so I couldn't really edit it. So anything that I wanted to add to like the base class from which all elements on the screen derive, I would need to do that through monkey patching, and that's really really painful to maintain, essentially. And there's also a lot of additional features in Canva that we don't really need in Motion Canvas, like full-blown event handling between elements. So what I'm currently working on is a different implementation of a scene that does not use Canva, and that's written from scratch specifically for Motion Canvas. And this one uses a layout system from the browser itself. So it actually uses HTML to arrange elements and calculate its widths and heights. And this is an example right here. It's a container with like 2 rows inside, and each row has 3 elements. So in Motion Canvas, it's represented by a rectangle with a layout, and layout is just the most basic node that you can have. It just has children and nothing else. So we have 2 layouts for rows and 3 tiles inside. And tile is just a component I created here. It's just a rectangle with some predefined functions. So as you can see here, I can use pretty much the same API as Flexbox to arrange my elements. So I set the width, I set the height, I set the direction, gap, padding, and it gets arranged the same way as a browser would do it. Justify content, align items, stuff like this. But the one cool thing about this is that now I can much easier animate between specific properties. So for instance, you can see that this rectangle here, maybe I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. This rectangle here has a width of 75%. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, animate its width towards 1200 pixels in a span of 1 second. If we go back here, you can see that it just animates itself. So it figures out that, hey, my current width is in percents. I need to store the current width in pixels, and I need to interpolate from that to 1200. We have some more animations here just to show that the layout can change. We have some text here, which, as you can see, wraps around the wraps, just wraps. Excuse me for a second. All right, I'm back. This is a good time to mention Flexbox Froggy game. What is a Flexbox Froggy game? Have you thought about making the playhead draggable? No. I can go as far as says excuse me. I can go as far as to say that it's impossible to do in a performant manner, because the way Motion Canvas works is that when I want to go to 96 frame, I need to reset the entire animation to 0 and recalculate it up until this point. So going forward is really cheap, right? And it can be done in real time, no problem. But going backwards actually takes time. And I can show you how much exactly. See, this is going forward and this is going backward. We're talking like 13 milliseconds just for what, 4 seconds of animation, right? I've never seen it going above like 100 milliseconds, but you know, to have it and just drag it around immediately is not possible. Maybe if we were to cache the result and then preview it could be achieved this way, but it's like, you know, it's not, in my opinion, a must-have, at least not at the moment. Interactive way to learn about flexboxes is the Froggy game. Oh, interesting. I haven't heard about this. Layout engine is always hard to optimize. Leave it for later. I'm not writing a layout engine. I'm literally using the browser to do the calculation for me. So it's like it's as optimized as Chrome can be. Also, the selecting of the element doesn't actually work for me, which is really weird. Yeah, it's kind of wonky at the moment. I'm aware of that. Some elements don't support it. They just can't be selected. But I gave up on fixing it because it's part of the legacy renderer, right? The legacy scene. This one is gonna work much better when it comes to like selecting elements. A new JavaScript framework just released called QW Quick, I assume, that's able to serialize JavaScript and its state. Maybe something similar could be used for caching motion canvas frames. Doesn't it use like HTML to store the current state of the application? Wasn't that the case? I think I've seen the Fireship video, so I'm not an expert, but maybe I'm gonna look into that. I don't think I'm. How do you say that? I'm not. I'm a bit pessimistic about that. I don't think a generator can be just like stopped and saved. But maybe. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Yeah, so this is the layout. Anything worth mentioning here? Oh, we have an image here. And this image is actually a SVG file. So that was actually surprising to me because it turns out you can just render this using Canvas and it just works. So that's cool. Yeah, I think that's it when it comes to that. The next point is reactivity, which is a new feature of this this new scene. It's not gonna work with the old one, but the new one is built using it. So the idea is that let's for instance add a circle here, if I can type. So I added a circle right here in the center. And now let's say that I want its absolute position to be the absolute position of my image. And now as you can see, it's here in the very middle of the image. So what I can do now is I can pass a method when setting the property, and this method will actually update throughout the entire animation. So now not only is it centered on the image, it will also follow it through the entire thing. And this can be done with any property that exists, right? So if you want to, I don't know, set the fill to something, you can pass a method, and it's just gonna be recalculated whenever necessary. I'm gonna leave it here actually. I have some support for filters, which is still kind of in the works, but I wanted it to be a little bit easier than it is in Canva. So let's say that, for instance, we want to add a shadow to this box in here. So it will be something like this: shadow offset, shadow color. And now this box has a shadow. And maybe also shadow blur. And same can be done with any other canvas filter, like for instance invert to 1. Now it's going to be inverted. And last, no, because these are canvas filters, so it works the way they do. It's like the way it works is that you say like filter is equal to invert and then a value, which I believe is in percents. So yeah, this is just an interface on top of that. And one interesting thing is font settings. Font size, for instance, here it's set to 32, but I believe this is the default. No, it is not. So because that's maybe not the best way to present that, but because we're using HTML for layouting, this means that if we set the font size on the view itself, it will be inherited just like CSS would. So I'm gonna set it to 12, for instance. And as you can see, it's now really small, and this would be this would happen in the entire canvas, right, wherever the element is, because everything is inherited from the view. So this is really nice way, because I remember somebody asking me like, hey, can I change the font everywhere? It used to be not possible with the previous renderer, but now it is. So I feel like this is gonna be a bit easier to stylize your animations. I haven't been following MC for a bit. Our layout and tile auto sizing. They're using a flexbox layout. So a tile is just a rectangle. This is just a method here. It's a functional component, or however you want to call it, and it has height of 100%, and then I set the width here to some random numbers just to make this cool little animation. But because the overall width is bigger than the parent itself, they kind of fight for the space using the flexbox layout. Used for rendering, is HTML used for rendering as well, or just layouting and then canvas is used for rendering? Canvas is used for rendering. HTML is only used for taking the bounding rectangle, and that's it. So you can do whatever you want inside of this. So I can show you, for instance, the code for a rectangle. So rectangle extends a shape, and it really only specifies a path. So this builds a rectangular path. And if we go to the shape, there's a draw method, and it just uses the context to draw, and that's it. Rectangle here can access this.size, which returns the size of this element, and this is how it knows where it should be rendered. One thing maybe that's interesting a bit, I don't really have a way to show it. I wanted to show you alpha compositing, but it wouldn't, I don't have enough things here because I would need a few images. I know that you're probably already sick of this question, but when will Motion Canvas be released on NPM? I'm not sick. If anything, I'm sorry that it's taking me so long. I wanted to release it sooner. I wanted to actually release it with the legacy scene, with the old one using Canva. But then I've seen how many people kind of want to use it. I want to try it out. I was like, I don't want to release it just yet because it's not. I was afraid that people would check it out and be like, oh, it's not good enough, and then move on, and then forgot about it. So I wanted to make sure that when it gets released, it's actually like ready to be used. So my current plan is to finish the new renderer, which the major chunk of it is already finished. It's just, it comes down to implementing like little pieces, like, you know, a line component. There is no line component just yet that would support, like, you know, a line, a bezier curve, and whatever. But the majority of the work, the foundational work, is done. And then I want to make a video of it because I don't want to release it until I actually use it to make a video. I'm talking about the new scene. So this month's video is gonna be made with it. And then I'll hopefully release it. So the next video is gonna be a devlog, and the video after that, hopefully, it's gonna be the release. So 2 months is what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout way. If it's not good enough, I and probably a lot of others are willing to contribute. Thank you. We have to take care how we define it is ready. Changing priorities can introduce unexpected delay. I mean, for me, it's really easy. If I can make a video with it, then it's ready. Currently, I cannot. I used to be able to do that, but that was with the old clunky scene, and now the new scene has to like go through the same trial, in my opinion. Because there's no, you know, no, I don't see it being of any use to anybody if I cannot use it for making my own videos, right? Because then if I make a video of it, I can release the source code for the video as well and be like, hey, this is how you use this to make a video. Here's a proof that it can be done. Stuff like that. In time for the new year. Exactly. Getting rid of Canva was urgent. that needed to not happen 1 month after release. Exactly, that would be a problem, right? People would get used to it, for instance, or would start using it, and then we'd be like, hey, actually, there's a breaking change. And then we need to adjust every single project that was created using it. Because that's another thing, right? Once it gets released, I won't be able to just like willy-nilly adjust whatever I want, right? And introduce breaking changes. Now I don't feel bad when I do that, but once it's public, you kind of have this like responsibility of, you know, not introducing breaking change every release. Is this a project you're making yourself? I mean, currently my patrons have access to it. Ross, who's currently in the chat, is a huge help when it comes to contributing to the project. And other patrons are helping as well from time to time. What are you planning to do after finishing this project? Well, I'm gonna go back to. I'm actually today. I guess it's a weekend, so this Monday I'm gonna go back to game development again. Motion Canvas is gonna become this like afternoon kind of project. But once Motion Canvas is ready, I'm gonna be looking for some other side project probably. Are all the examples still using the legacy renderer? How recently have you introduced it? The legacy renderer, yes. I mean, currently there's only one example. There's only one video available. But yes, it uses the legacy renderer, and if your question is when I introduce the new renderer, then the answer is I haven't yet. Probably later this week, I'm gonna publish this on GitHub so that patrons can, you know, start looking at it and using it if they want to. Will Motion Canvas be available as a standalone application, or it only works through localhost? No, it only works through localhost. Because you need a code editor, right? And something that can detect changes on your local storage. I guess you could run this on the browser somehow. There are these tools that allow you to like simulate Node.js on the browser. StackBlitz, I think, is one of them. But no, but the way it works is that it's just an npm project that you run locally. You can build it. That's a new thing that has been introduced together with Vite, which is the fact that you can actually compile your animation, and it produces just one JS file that you can attach on a website, and you can just play the animation on the website. Because we do have a website for Motion Canvas, and here I would like to, for instance, here's an animation, but currently this is a rendered animation. I would like to be able to just embed a Motion Canvas animation on a website that would just run using Canvas. Hey, your videos are always super interesting. Keep it up. Thank you very much. A couple of days ago, I was still using Conva and I was not liking it. I have a huge trouble understanding what is Conva meant for. Like, what's the idea behind this? Because it's very opinionated in the way it implements stuff, but then it's not like a standalone application. Like, it has, for instance, a whole support for like transforming multiple objects, drawing little handles to transform them. It feels like it was meant to make like a web-based SVG editor or something like that. You can always do Electron. By the way, I'm I see your chat a little bit faster, but I'm behind the messages. You can always use Electron. I can, but I haven't heard a good argument as to why yet. I know that some sites have this weird Google app and it pretty much removes the URL bar, changes the title of the application and throws an icon on it. That could be an option. You are talking about progressive web applications, right? The fact that you can like quote unquote install a website on your computer. I actually have like YouTube Music saved this way. That's interesting. I'll have to look into it. How you go about embedding animations in a website like Lottie? I have no idea what Lottie is. Is it this? Yeah, I would need to read up on that because I don't know. The way I imagine embedding working with Motion Canvas is that you have a player. This player has a source, and this source links to a JS file. This JS file is then loaded asynchronously, and it's played in the player. And the player is like a custom web component or something like that. Have you heard about Theater.js? No, I have not. Please don't use Electron. If you use Electron, you can use command line tools like ffmpeg from Node to build videos from the image sequence. So you can do that already. Like that's the thing about Motion Canvas right now is that Vite is running on the Node.js side. It's just like Electron, right? Because in Electron you have the Node.js side of things, and you have the actual window that runs like Chrome essentially. And these two communicate with each other. And this is exactly what is happening now. It's just instead of using a separate window with a wrapper for Chrome, we're using Chrome itself. Because I feel like it's much easier for people to use because everybody has a browser and you don't need to install an application that's like 300 megabytes for no reason. Just so that you have another instance of Chrome running on your machine, essentially. So essentially we need a safe format which ties into the list of project AI feature you just implemented. But we have a safe format. Like this is it. Like an animation in Motion Canvas is a function. So you just compile the function, you minimize it, and you run it. This of course introduces some vectors of attacks, I guess, because like if you were to run somebody else's animation on your server, that's kind of dangerous. But as long as you're the one who created the animation, then you're just running the function on your website, right? Have you heard of Tauri? No. Guys, you're asking me of so many about so many things. I don't know anything. Tauri. Is this it? framework for building tiny, blazingly fast binaries for all major desktop platforms. Developers can integrate any front-end framework that compiles to HTML, JS, and CSS for building their user interface. The backend of the application is a Rust source binary with an API that the frontend can interact with. But we still need Vite. Here's the thing, right? Even if you're using like an Electron or any Electron-like solution, because we need to detect the changes on the drive and we need to serve them to the browser, unless we want to implement this ourselves. But that's kind of like an undertaking, quite. Any idea how big the bundle would be for minified motion canvas scene plus the code to render it? Give me a second. Can I open it in Explorer? So this one animation, which is a really simple animation, has 200 kilobytes. But I don't think it's minimized. I think it's just, oh no, it is minimized. So there's a lot of things that we still can do to optimize it. For instance, tree shaking is not working right now because of what's the name of them? Decorators. Yeah, because decorators in TypeScript, they pollute the global scope kind of, and tree shaking doesn't work with them. But there's a way to work around that, which I'm looking towards. So this is like 200 kilobytes for 10 seconds long animation. But the length of animation doesn't actually matter that much, right? It's how many components, how many different components you're using on your scene. And it could be made smaller. But this is why the way I would treat that would be like a video file, right? So the JavaScript would actually be loaded asynchronously by some sort of a player. So the player code would be really small, and then it would load like an actual video, right? Quote unquote video. Go to the website though. We're talking about Tauri. Give me a second. Man, I'm all over the place today. Sorry for that. Yeah, it's pretty much the same information that was on GitHub, right? I get it, kinda, what you're going for here, but Tauri is cool, but isn't for this kind of project. That's what I agree with. Because this is a project for programmers. It's not for like an end user that needs an out-of-the-box UI, right? At least that's kind of how I think about this. Tauri has Vite support, but does it for development of Tauri applications or for releasing them together with Vite? How would that work? Because that's a bit confusing about Motion Canvas, right? Vite here is not a development dependency. Vite is an actual dependency that you need to run the application. It's part of the application. I'm gonna skim through the chat if I miss any questions. Yeah, that makes sense. Progressive web application is probably the best option for all. Because I'm not... one of the cool things about stuff like that is that we could actually have like model windows, which is not something that you can really do with a browser. You can make a model window, but it always has the address bar. You can disable it because security. So in that regard, it would be nice, but I don't think it justifies the the additional complexity. Yeah, so I actually went through all the things that I wanted to say. About new timeline, the project view, timing, independent of frame rate, layout, reactivity, filters, and fonts. So yeah. You use Vite for both MC code-based development and MC scene code. No. I mean, yes, I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. The only... From within the code, the only place where I use Vite is to communicate with the Node.js through a WebSocket and to do hot module replacement. But that's it. Transitions and use context, I think, are new. It's nice to have raw access to the context. Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna show this pretty quick. So I can access the raw context that actually is used to render the animation, and I can do whatever I want with it. So when I do something like this callback is gonna be called, I believe, before rendering the animation. So I can say like, hey, scale this to like 0.5. And now, as you can see, it's a bit smaller. And the same API is also used during when using transitions. So for instance, if I use a slide transition here, this is how it looks like. Oh, excuse me for a second. All right, I'm back. Nice doorbell, thanks. Anyway, slide transition. Looks like this. And the way it's implemented, it basically uses this hook called use transition, and it's really similar to use context, but it uses two different contexts. So one for the previous scene and one for the next scene. Here, unfortunately, I only have one scene, so you can see the transition. But you can transform this context however you want. And here it just goes from 0 to the position, which is calculated from the size of the scene, from 0 to the off-screen position, and from the off-screen position to 0. So that's really cool. I think it's much better than what we had before. I'm not sure if this is the topic, but how do you plan to implement sound effects in Astortion? I don't know yet. I know next to nothing about coding audio in video games. I have to learn about that. I've never done this. Oh, meta files, right? So I'm gonna go to the example project from before really quick. So if you take a look at this animation, as you can see, there are lots of scenes, and each of them has time events, and we can actually edit these time events. So it used to be a thing that these values would be stored in local storage, which is problematic because you cannot share them with other people, and they can also disappear if the local storage decides to be wiped. Now, what happens instead is that when you create a scene, each of them gets a meta file, which is named the same way the scene is, but with a .meta extension. And here, as you can see, the time events are stored. And the API is much more abstract. You can actually store whatever you want. So the idea is that anything that can be edited through the UI is going to be stored in the meta files, and you can check them out, check out them, store them in Git, share them with other people, and so on and so forth. Similarly, the project file also has its own meta file, which currently doesn't have any data, but in the future, maybe something is going to be here. Other plans to allow for third-party libraries plugins for MC. If I want to make an alternate layout library, would it have to be merged into MC's main branch? No. So there is, hold on. The way it currently works, we have this monorepo here. Core is responsible for just managing the project and the scenes and animation in general. But then there are different implementations of scenes. So here's the legacy one. This is what I've been using for all my videos up until this point. This is what uses Conva. And here's the 2D, which is meant to be the default scene implementation. And the way it works is that you just create a 2D, in this case it's 2D scene, create something that extends either the generator scene, which is an abstract implementation of the scene, or you can just implement the scene interface itself. And as long as you can do that, you can provide custom renderer logic for motion canvas. So we can, I don't know, do a scene that uses Three.js for rendering 3D stuff. And it will also work. Because as you can see, it just needs to implement the render method that takes the context and the canvas, which, by the way, canvas is not necessary here. I just realized that at some time ago, because you can access canvas from within the context. If you do context.canvas, you can actually access the canvas. But anyway, you get the context, you render whatever you want, however you want, whatever library you want to use. And it's just an NPM package. It doesn't have to be like plug into motion canvas. Are you planning to post the dialog system source code? Yeah, but the motion canvas currently has the priority. Typewriter is gonna be next. Meta files are a good design choice. I stole them from Unity, but thank you. Or you can build custom components for the standard 2D scene and they will work even if you haven't merged. Yeah, that's also true. You can just extend any of the components really and do whatever you want with them. Or even make like functional components like this one. But you can also make a class that extends rectangle, for instance. I suppose you can use PNPM or YARN workspaces instead of publish to NPM. I mean, if you want to extract the scene to a custom package, yeah, you can just use workspaces in NPM as well. But I'm assuming that if you want to create like a custom renderer, you're gonna want to share it. Happy birthday, Artificial. My birthday was yesterday, but thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. All right, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you have any questions. Thanks for the updates. No problem. Bye-bye. Yeah, so I guess I say that the stream is officially ending. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry that there was no video this month, but there's gonna be next month. So, I mean, this month technically is the first already. Bye-bye. Thanks for the work. No problem. All right. So again, thank you so much for participating, and until next time.